Hello, we're going to be starting our 6.8 tutorial. To begin this, we'll start with new. Once we get to our template folder, locate your folder where you keep the McFatter templates on your computer. In my case, I store mine in my documents, McFatter templates, and we need to use the McFatter ACAD template. I'm going to turn my grid off, make the drawing process a little bit easier to see. Center scroll button, zoom twice. Now this next portion you will not have to do. I'm going to insert the handout that is provided to you. Now we can see it all on screen. Work on it together. Close up the properties. Now, for here, we have a very basic rectangular shape. So we're going to start with the overall dimensions. Our largest dimension here across the bottom is 5. And our tallest dimension here is 2. So we're going to start off with the line command. I'm going to go to the Home tab, start a line command. One thing that's important to make sure, once you start your line, make sure you're using the ortho. I'm going to type in 5. Enter. Then I'm going to point down. Type in 2. Enter. Then I'm going to bring my line across here. 5. Enter. I'm going to bring my line up at 2. Enter. Right click. Enter. And that finishes that drawing off here. Now, to make this a little bit easier, let's go ahead and set up our units. U-N-I-T-S. Notice I typed this in with no command active. Hit the Enter key. In our units, we're going to change our precision to 3 places. The majority of the dimensions here are in 3 places. So we're going to change that to 3 places as well. I'm going to hit OK. Now for our dimensions, dim, D-I-M-S-T-Y, dimension style. And I'm going to modify that as well. Under our primary units tab, I'm going to change the precision to 3 places. Hit OK. And close. So now I can go ahead and place a dimension. Right here. Linear. And dimension the end of this to the end of that at 5. Select and delete. I can also check my height with linear dimension from top to bottom, and I got 2. Now with that complete, we can start working on the inner portion of this. This has set our limits for how big the piece actually is. Our first offset is going to locate a location of where a hole is going to be. I'm going to use the offset command, and I'm going to type in as a distance 0.5. Then I can select the line here on the left and then move it to the right, and I can select anywhere on this right hand side. My left click, I've now placed my line. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. The next dimension, located on here, is at 0.750. So let's go ahead and do that dimension. 0.750, enter. I'm going to pick my baseline, pick the side I want it on, right-click, and enter. Then I'm going to right-click, repeat offset, right-click, excuse me, escape. Still in the command. If you are out of the command, I'll hit escape. You can also use the offset command again. And then we're going to do the next distance of 1.625. So now I can say, specify offset distance, and it says 1.625. Enter. Select my baseline on the left and move it across to my right. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. The next dimension here is at 3.250. So I'm going to type in 3.25. Enter. You may have noticed that I haven't been using any of the zeros. The extra zero past the last number after a decimal is irrelevant. Enter. Okay. So now I have all the valuable information here across here on the top. Now I can proceed with my depth measurements from the top going down. Let's go ahead and do some more offsetting. Offset command. Our first dimension here, 0.375. 0.375. Enter. Select my line across the top and pull it down. Select. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. Next distance I have is from the top to the holes. Add a distance of 1. 1, enter. Take the top line, bring it down. Left-click, right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. Next distance is 1.375. 1.375. Enter. Select my top line, bringing it down. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. Now, after this 1.375, the next dimension is coming from this arrow here to that arrow here, which is giving me a number of 0.250. So that's going to be my next offset distance, 0.25, enter. But this time, instead of going from the top, I'm going to use the last line that I offset, at 1.375. Select that line, bring it down underneath, and select. Right-click, enter. Now the next thing I need to do is going to be the, with that, actually, it will finish us off with that. So now we're going to go ahead and start putting information in. We have everything we need here, so now we can go ahead and start putting in. Let's put in our circles first. So the first offset, this line here, and this offset right here at the 1 inch, I'm going to change those two line types to center line so we can keep track of them. I can also go ahead and put a delinear dimension in from here to there to verify that's our 0.5. And then this dimension from here to there is our 1. Now in this drawing, it's not specified where this hole is located right here. We're going to go ahead and make it uniform with the piece because we have a dimension here of 0.5 with this dimension here, and it's at 2 times with them being in line. So we're going to make that one a 0.5 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do an offset command. 0.5, enter. Select this line here and bring it across. I click enter. And that line that I just offset is also going to be my next center line here. So in the assignment, it does not show this dimension, but for the instructions coming from the instructor, make that dimension 0.5. All right, so now we're going to put our circles in. I'm going to remove this dimension and remove this dimension. Now I can put my circle in. So there are 2 types of circles that are available to us. If we read what this dimension here says, is that it says 2 times a diameter 0.25. So that means that this circle's diameter from one quadrant of the circle to the other quadrant of the circle measures at 0.25. So I need to go ahead and make sure I do that same measurement. So up here at the top in the Home tab, I go to the circle, and I'm going to change my circle drawing tool to diameter. With that, I'm going to go to the intersection of where those 2 center lines are matching, and I'm going to type in a diameter of 0.25. Now, if you look closely, you can also see a dimension when I start typing in 0.25 is going from one end of the circle to the other. That is a diameter dimension. Go ahead and put enter, and it goes to the proper size. Going to replicate that same process. Circle diameter. Pick my intersection, and then type in 0.25. So now I have those 2 circles in place. I no longer require to keep these center lines here anymore. I can now eliminate them. The next portion I would like to tackle is going to be this rectangle right here at the top. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. I already have laid out from here to there 0.75. From here to here 1.625 at a depth from here to here at 0.375. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete these dimensions. I need to cut this top line from here to here out. I need to cut this line away, this line going down, this line going down, and this line here going to the left. So in order to do that, when I select my trim command, this is the cutting plane for the left side, this is the cutting plane for the right side, this is the cutting plane for the bottom. Our left and right lines will also cut the top. So now I'm going to right click to start selecting my cutting planes. Once I select, it'll get rid of that line. Select, 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 select. Remember, the select button is going to be your left click. Once I'm done, right click, enter. All right, so now we have our rectangle cut notch right here. The next thing we're going to be doing is the radius dimension, or the radius circle that is here. It's located at the 3.25 dimension to there. Delete that. And I'm going to draw my circle. Now this time I have to go in here and I have to change this to a radius circle. Click my point here. We also notice that this is in line with the top. So make sure I use that top. And now you'll notice the numbers are now going halfway from the center to the quadrant. So a radius is half of a diameter. At a radius of 1.25, 1.125, I can now type in 1.125. You can see the dimension as shown. I hit enter, and there goes my circle. I no longer need this line, so I can delete that. And I can now go ahead and trim this line inside the circle. And I can use this line, right click, to cut away this half of the circle and that line. Right click, enter. Now, a thing to note with this, as we're going through this process, we're going to find an error right in here on this side. So in order to do that, what we need to do is put a dimension here, from here to the center. And we're going to put another dimension in here. It's going to be a radial dimension. All right, our last dimension. It's going to be a linear dimension from here to here. Now, this dimension is incorrect for this problem. We can see here that it's saying 0.5. If we were to add these three numbers up, they will not come to the 5. So the 0.5 that's in the drawing, in this dimension for the assignment, is incorrect. As a matter of fact, this is a dimension that's called a redundant dimension. It's over-dimensioned. So typically you don't see dimensions following up one step after the other. It typically leads to the dimension being over-defined. So in this example, if you ever have a problem where something just doesn't add up right, you've done the maths, you've looked from center to the line and to the line over, and it doesn't work out, always tell the person who is your superior Whether you're working in an architectural field or whether you're working in a mechanical field or an engineering field, always make sure that your superior knows before you make any changes, so that when it hits the assembly line, you don't end up with 1,000 pieces that are changed to your discretion. Let them know, and they will tell you to make the adjustments. So now that we've gone and told our person in charge, in this case will be the instructor, this dimension here, we are removing. We're not going to include that. The total is going to come from these two dimensions and our overall. All right, so that's out of the way. I'm going to take these two dimensions out of here. Zoom in here. Now, a good time to go ahead and make sure that we save our drawing. So let's go ahead and do that. Go to Save. It's automatically going to default as Save As. You make sure you put it in the correct folder location. I'm going to put mine in my documents, but you should go ahead and use your proper filing techniques. And 6.8, and then save. All right, just in case we have any kind of power outage or any other issue. All right, so now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and start working on the bottom. We haven't put any of the dimensions in here across the bottom, so let's go ahead and place those in now. To begin, start with the offset command. The first dimension that we have from here to here is 0.625. 0.625. Enter. Selecting the line on the left-hand side, moving to the right. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. The next distance from the line we just offset is going to be 0.5. So the distance of 0.5, enter. Select this line here as our baseline. Move it over to the right. Select a point. Right-click, enter. Next dimension is going to come back from the base on the left-hand side, and it's going to be 3.875. So I'm going to right-click, repeat offset, distance of 3.875, enter. Select my baseline, bring it across, and select the side. Right-click, enter. And our last dimension that we're going to need, because we already have the 5 already given, is going to be from our right-hand side coming to our left at 0.625. So I'm going to right-click, repeat offset, distance of 0.625, enter. And I'm going to select this right-hand side and then move it toward my left. Select the point and then hit Enter key. So now that I have those in place, I'm going to cut out the rectangles. For this, I'm going to use the trim command. And because each one of these lines is going to be used to cut the other, I'm just going to do a crossing window, selecting in an empty area and moving from my right to my left, selecting all 4 of these lines. Then I'm going to come over here to the right-hand side, do the same thing, use the left click in an empty area, moving it across, and then selecting the next point and getting those 4 lines. When I'm done, I hit the right click. Now I can go ahead and cut. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll cut in between. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And so now those are all cut out. Right click, enter. And now we are finished here with all the different drawing of the lines. So now that this portion is complete, what we want to do is do a crossing window, selecting the whole drawing. And we're going to change the layer from being at layer 0 to working with object. So now all these lines here now have become object lines. Escape. And then we can start with doing our dimensions. So from here, let's make sure we're using the correct layers and use our anno layer, a linear dimension from here to here. I'm going to pick that up a little higher. Right click, repeat dimension. From here, skip the center mark, so I'll put the dimension in there. To here. Place that dimension there. Now, for this, I need to go ahead and put in a center mark. So I'm going to hit the escape key. I'm going to go to the annotate tab. And I'm going to start a center mark command. With the center mark command, I can select a arc or circle and put a center mark in. I'm going to hit the escape key. I'm going to change with a crossing window the center mark to center. All right. Now, if you want to save time before going on to that step where I made the center mark first, I could have changed the layer here to center. Like this. And then I'm going to put in 2 more center marks, one for this circle and one for this circle. So if I go into annotate, center mark, select this circle, and select this circle. And it puts in those nice, clean little center marks. All right, right click. And now I have my center marks in there. I'm going to go back home, change this dimension to annotation, and I'm going to continue annotating my drawing. Starting with my linear command, let's go ahead and get that. Now that I have that dimension in place, I'm going to put it right here on the top of the dimension and put it here. Notice that because I went from my left to right, the dimension went on this side. I'm going to delete that dimension. Right click, escape. I'm going to need a linear dimension. And this time I'm going to go from my right, from this point here, to the end. And I'm going to pick that up. And now the dimension is going to my left. All right. Let's continue our dimension. Bring it from there. And on this one, be very careful. You don't want to put the dimension on the actual center mark itself. If you do that, and I place this dimension here, what happens is I cover my beautiful little center mark that I just put in. To avoid that, delete. If I put the center mark dimension on the inside edge right here, above the break, when I place that down, I pull it up. Now you can see that center mark is not going to get covered by my dimension. So typically when you do a dimension for a center mark, if you have the center lines available, you can go ahead and use that break as a dimensioning point to keep your lines nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape, make sure everything's all clear, and we will continue with our dimensions. Let's go ahead and put our dimension in with linear command. We're going to go from here to here. Now notice as I'm going up and down, I get one dimension, but when I go left to right, I get a different dimension. Go ahead and do the other side. From here to here. There. Repeat dimension from here to the overall. Repeat dimension. We have this little interior dimension from here to here. And we're going to line that up by clicking there. All right. So we're looking nice and clean. This is actually a little bit cleaner here than it is being in the center of that. Makes it a little bit harder to read. As you can see, it kind of blurs it out a little bit. Then we need a dimension for the bottom. Remember, we're going to ignore this dimension here. Let's do our linear dimension from here to here. And we'll do our overall from here to there. And then our left side from here to there. Let's line that up with this dimension here. Right click, repeat dimension from here to there. Then we'll line that up nice and neat. And our last dimension for this side will be from here to there. And place that accordingly. So we're looking pretty good. The next thing that we need is a diameter dimension for this circle. What you're going to notice, let's change this. Instead of it being linear, I'm going to change this to diameter. I'm going to select the circle and then pull the dimension out. Now, once I place that dimension, we can see diameter of 0.250, but we also notice that a center mark has appeared on this drawing. We don't want that center mark to be there because it covers up our nice green center mark. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that dimension, right click, and go to Properties. And in Properties, where it says center mark, we're going to change where it says line to none. Hit the escape key. And then another thing we're going to need to do is in this text, if we double click it twice with a left click, we can edit the text. As long as that crosshair is on the left-hand side, we could actually type in front of the dimension. And what we need to type in is our 2x. So I'll type in 2, cap locks, x, space. And then I'll click away anywhere with a left click. And there's our dimension with our note added. Next thing we need to do is dimension this. And on this side, it's going to be a radial dimension. Close the properties. So in order to make this dimension here happen, we're going to use the radius dimension, selecting on the circle, and we're going to pull that dimension across this way and place it right here. Now, in the drawing, you're going to notice that it's bringing it all the way across. In order to change that, we're going to select that dimension, right-click, and go to Properties. In here, we also don't need a center mark, so we're going to change that to none. And we want to also change our extension line to off. Then we can hit the escape key and exit properties. Go ahead and give our drawing a nice check. Go through all the dimensions that we have available to us. One thing that we need to go ahead and put in here, we go to center line, and we're going to just draw a quick line from the end point of this to the end point of that. Right click, enter. That shows that this center line right here is in line with the 1, so that you could recognize that these two circles are in line with each other. Looks like our drawing is nicely complete. Let's go ahead and save. Notice I use the icon right here. I've already saved as. Now I'm going to just use the quick icon to save. You can also still press the A and save accordingly as well. Now in this case, I'm going to erase my page here. Hit the center scroll button twice to zoom all. And now we're going to set this up for a landscape, 8.5 by 11. Center scroll button twice to zoom all. Then I'm going to click inside the viewport twice, 1, 2. Hit the center scroll button twice to zoom all. Now I'm going to go ahead and go down to where it says scale and change the scale to 1 to 1. I'm going to select out here in the gray twice with the left click. Now what you would do is go ahead and put your date in, drawn by, your scale, and the project. Once you've filled out that information, the drawing is complete. save. Then we're going to go to our printer and print. Continue single plot. Making sure we're on DWG to PDF. Your template should have your ANSI expanded A set. Monochrome will be set. Scales at 1:1. Let's go ahead and preview that. Everything looks nice and neat, very organized. And then the last step, I'm going to exit that. And then hit OK. And then you save it where you save your work to be turned in. And you'll have your PDF ready to hand out back to the instructor. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and see you in class.